Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, episode 170, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So we go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between. I have 24 comics this week, so it's a bit of a bigger haul than usual. So let's get started. We go worst pick of the week. So what was number 24? And that was Grand Passion issue 1, where I was actually really looking forward to the concept of this, that a cop falls in love with this woman who has a partner who is her love interest, who are criminals, and then this cop and her fall in love, and I did not get that really from this book. I mean, obviously I got glimpses of it, but I felt like the execution could have been a lot better, even though the art was really good. Like, I like the art style overall. It just felt really plain. I didn't really get anything from these characters. They felt very generic to me, and I just couldn't get into the story as much as I wanted to, even though I thought it had a great concept. So Grand Passion issue 1 gets 2 stars for me, and that was number 24. Moving on to number 23, which is a book that I just have not been enjoying that much, but I pick up out of obligation because I love the hero, but couldn't get into this one. Green Arrow issue 11. So this continues this action-y issue without real character progression. I'm actually going to talk about a story a little later in the line where I feel it does an action issue very well with also having character interactions and character progression. Here it's not a lot of character interaction. I mean, you still have the very forced interaction between Dinah and Oliver that doesn't feel realistic yet, but I do like the art. That is something I do like. I do enjoy kind of this, it's not cartoony, but it's this lighter toned artwork for Green Arrow, and I guess it was a cool grand entrance in the end saying, hey, I'm back, but it kind of just feels forgettable to me, and overall, yeah, the whole art definitely felt forgettable of the runaway train, and it just didn't do much for the characters for me. So Green Arrow issue 11 still low, and that is number 23, and I gave that 2 stars. Moving on to number 22, which is a book that is still low on my radar too, and that is Infamous Iron Man issue 2. So I just felt like this issue was a bit slower, and it still doesn't buy me to say, yes, Infamous Iron Man, you know, Dr. Doom is a main lead and should be in an Iron Man book. I still don't really get why he's here. He still also feels very forced to be in this Iron Man book. Even his relationship with Tony's kind of love interest from the last series doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe it will, but we'll see. And then Thing, I like, but he wasn't in the issue that much. Yeah, and a lot doesn't really get, you know, accomplished in this issue. So overall, I gave Infamous Iron Man issue 2 2.5 stars. Also, the artwork kind of felt off to me. I felt like it was a lot darker than it was. Maybe there are just a lot of darker scenes here. So Infamous Iron Man issue 2 gets 2.5 stars. And that is number 22. Moving on to number 21, which is Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat issue 12, which I actually liked the character progression of Ian. I thought that was definitely a good note, but it still has this weird flip-flopness to this book where I don't know what tone it's going for, because you have a really serious story with Ian and talking about being friends with Patsy and having this horrible roommate, but it doesn't fit this kind of cartooniness thing it's going for. And then Black Cat, you know, I just don't really like the role she plays here, or her minions. They're kind of really just very two-dimensional. So I just haven't really liked this arc that much. But if you do like Ian's character, you do get a little bit of progression here, but I don't know if it's really worth buying the issue just for that. So Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat issue 12, gets 2.5 stars, and I believe that was number 21. Let's find out. It was number 21, so now we're moving on to number 20, which is Spider-Man issue 2, which is, for some reason, still a Civil War 2 tie-in. I don't know why. And that's the real reason why I didn't really like this issue. It just kind of feels so out of place. I mean, I know Civil War is still going on, which is extremely delayed, but here, you know, I liked it had to do with supporting characters. Miles is actually not in this issue at all, so if you expected him, he wasn't in this. So I like that had to do with the supporting characters. But like I said, it's just too late to tell the story, and when you're reading it, it's like, alright, but we're not even, like, Civil War II should have been done. So it's hard to read this tie-in and get a lot out of it. And, the character interactions are fun, but not really vital to the story. So Spider-Man issue 9 for me gets 2.5 stars. I am just very excited for the series to leave Civil War II, even though the next issue is a Civil War II tie-in once again. Alright, moving on to number 19, which is Grimm issue 3 from Dynamite. I like the artwork. I think that's also a problem I have with this issue, though. It feels very glamorous the way all the characters look. They don't really look like their counterpart in the TV show. They look a little bit too much cartoonish to me, but and especially Juliet doesn't really look like herself. And there's times where it looks a little too simplistic with the Hex and Beast scenes. And I don't know if this series had to be as long as it is, but am I having a fun time with it? Yeah, I do think we're getting a better Juliet story than we originally got in the TV show. So I gave it 3 stars. I'm still having fun with it, but it's a little bit longer than I think it had to be so far. Alright, moving on to number 18. This book's a bit lower than it was last time it came out, and that is Die Kitty Die, issue 2. In this issue, it's our main character, Kitty, going against her ghost friend, and her ghost friend's kind of annoying. That's why I didn't really like the issue. I think you'll have to be like a hardcore Archie fan to really, get into this issue. And yeah, I mean, it was okay. I definitely still like the concept. Still very excited to see where it goes, but this issue is a bit weaker than the first issue, which I think poked fun at the industry more than this, but I mean, obviously the whole event still pokes fun at the industry. So yeah, I give Die Kitty Die issue 2 3 stars. Alright, moving on to number 17, which is Superman issue 11, which is also a fun series, but the artwork is still not allowing me to get into this. It still feels so crowded, and it's kind of hard to read the book, especially because it's a very wordy book, where I feel like it doesn't have to be this wordy for what's going on in the story. I think it's kind of unnecessarily wordy at times. So overall, it just kind of feels crowded, this book. But was it fun? Yeah, you're getting to see Damian and Superboy's completely different, Damian and Superboy's completely different personalities clash here, and you're just kind of seeing Bruce and Superman watch, which is fun. But yeah, it was an okay issue for me. I'm still excited for Super Sons, but the artwork really brought it down. So Superman issue 11 gets 3 stars. Alright, so we are moving on to number 16, which is Robin Hood issue 6. This is kind of still a forgettable issue of Robin Hood. It's Robin Hood being interrogated for this murder, and then there's this plant boy that comes out of the woodwork and tries to kill some of the police officers, which he does, and didn't really seem like that the police took it too seriously, though, in the end, especially the commissioner, who is one of the main characters of Robin Hood. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. It was still a fun issue. Love the artwork for this book. That definitely made it a bit higher, but the story is a bit forgettable. So Robin Hood issue 6 gets 3 stars, and that is number 16. So now we're moving on to number 15, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 21. Yeah, this is actually a lot lower than I expected, because I was really looking forward to this issue. I love Kane, I love Spider-Gwen. And this issue was the kind of in-between of Clone Conspiracy issue 1 to Clone Conspiracy issue 2. Which, Clone Conspiracy issue 2, I loved. It was like my number 2 of last week. So I was surprised I didn't like this issue as much, but there's a lot of exposition of how Kane is alive and the disease he has, which we kind of already know about that disease in the past, unless it's a different one. I'm pretty sure it's the same genetic disease he's had, but now he's not cured again. But yeah, with this issue, do you need to read it? No, but if you're a fan of these characters, I say go ahead and read it. But it wasn't the most interesting thing that I did read, but it was cool to see that Gwen and Kane did have a connection of some sort. So, The Amazing Spider-Man issue 21 gets 3 stars, and that was number 15, I believe. It was. Moving on to number 14, which is Green Lanterns issue 11, where I felt like the story was pretty good. The artwork, though, very thin lined. I haven't liked this style of artwork. I like when it's a little bit thicker lines. It makes for some weird looking scenes. Like here, you really couldn't see the detail of the boy that much, so I just don't really like the line work of this art style. But yeah, still it's an interesting issue that Jessica and Boz are finally coming face to face with our Phantom Ring holder right now, and he wants to be a Green Lantern, but in the end his emotions kind of change where he becomes Orange Lantern. So we'll see how that works out in the next issue. But it was nice seeing some cameos of other Green Lantern heroes, or at least Green Lantern characters. Like Carol was in this issue for one panel, but it was still cool. Maybe she'll appear in a future issue. I want to see more of Carol. Always feel like that's an underused character in the DC universe. But I liked the issue, but again, the artwork did bring it down for me. And did the story progress that much? No, not really. It was, alright, they countered. Now what? So I do think the previous issues were better for the Phantom Ring storyline, but, you know, still worth picking up if you're reading Phantom Ring and you're enjoying it, or Phantom Lantern. Green Lanterns issue 11 gets 3 stars for me. Now it's number 14. Alright, now we're moving on to number 13, which is All New Wolverine issue 14, which we do get to see S.H.I.E.L.D. and how they react to what happened with Wolverine, with killing all these people. And Laura tries to explain that it wasn't her, and some of S.H.I.E.L.D. believes it, some of them don't. And that's actually pretty much the whole issue, is her being captured and trying to escape S.H.I.E.L.D., but also figuring out, like, what the hell's happening? Who are the people who have this? And I think there's some interesting character moments between Gabby and Laura. Definitely the best part. There's some interesting dialogue, but the artwork is really simplistic. That's one thing that's definitely a complaint. And yeah, this issue, there's not a lot here, you know, story-wise, because she's just kind of captured with S.H.I.E.L.D. and like, alright, we gotta go. But I gave it 3.5 stars. Like I said, the dialogue was really well done, and I'm still looking forward to seeing where the rest of the story goes. So All New X-Men issue 14 gets 3.5 stars, and that was number 13. So now we're moving on to number 12. We're sad to see this a little lower, and that is Lady Killer 2, issue 3, I believe we're up to. And with this issue, we learn a little bit about our main character's mother-in-law. She worked for the Nazis, which was, I did not expect that. But we also learned more about our main character's partner, who was just a really bad guy. And now the Union doesn't even want our main character there unless she drops him, which it looks like she might be ready to do, but he's done some weird stuff in the end. He's kidnapped this person. So I believe it might be her husband. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah, so, it was interesting, though. We get to learn a little bit more about the supporting characters. It didn't have as much killing in this issue, but, it was, again, interesting to learn more about these supporting characters. So overall, I gave it 3.5 stars, Lady Killer, to issue 3. Alright, moving on to number 11. Which is Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye. Issue, what are we up to? Issue 2. Definitely for me the best Young Animals book, and the Young Animal book I'm most likely going to continue with. I'm still picking up Shade though. I want to see where that goes. I'm reading that digitally. But Cave Carson I see myself picking up physically every month because I'm really enjoying it. I like this issue, even though it was, you know, it was just pretty much let me kidnap this person type issue. You know, there wasn't a lot of, you know, twists and turns, but it was us learning more about Cave Carson and his daughter, and her daughter, and the daughter's boyfriend dying in this issue, most likely. We'll see what happens to him, but it's her getting into the world of Cave Carson, because she got out a normal life before this, and it looks like her mom is some sort of princess, which is interesting, and then we're left in a cliffhanger where you're like, oh my god, I want more, but at the same time, like, oh, you ended there? Where, they're in the middle of a car chase, so we'll see where that car chase goes in the end. But, so I was like, oh, that kind of felt like you're in the middle of the story ending it, but at the same time, it makes me want to read more. So, I was kind of torn between the ending. But I'm really liking this series. You know, it's a little weird, but it's just just enough weird for me. The other books are a little out there, a little bit more out there for me. But I like Cape Carson because it's a little bit more character driven than the other Young Animal books. So I'm going to give this issue 3.5 stars, and definitely looking forward to seeing where it goes. It was actually the first book I read this week too, so I really do like the book. Alright, moving on to number 10, a book that's a little lower than usual, and that is Kill or Be Killed, issue 4. Which, I feel like this issue slows things down a bit, even though the dialogue is still beautiful for this book of, you know, the mind frame of our main character right now. But, mostly it's just, you know, where is he at with his relationship with Kira, and who is he willing to kill? So it's kind of the same thing without really having a big plot of like who the next person he is going to kill is. So it kind of feels like a filler issue to Kill or Be Killed, but it's still a fun issue to read because the dialogue is so well written. So Kill or Be Killed issue 4 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, now we're moving on to number 9, which is Jessica Jones issue 2. Yeah, this is a bit lower than the last issue, but I also felt like this was a bit of a slower issue where, yes, we're finally learning about the mystery and we actually get to see Luke and Jessica's kid, so it's good that we know she's alive, but I feel like the mystery of what happened in the past and whatever happened in this gap is a benefit and a negative of this book. It's the benefit because, hey, we have this mystery, that's what Jessica Jones is all about, that's what Alias is all about, but at the same time, it's just like, I can't get into the story because of it, because it's too much mystery in a point. So, yeah, Jessica Jones for me, though, gets 3.5 stars. There is fun interactions between Luke and Jessica. It's nice seeing Jessica making a better relationship with her mother, but it's a bit slower this issue, and like I said, maybe it's a little bit too much mystery to really get us into this book as you're reading it issue by issue. I think it's a little bit easier if you read this in trade, but we'll see where it goes. So Jessica Jones issue 2 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so we're moving on to number 8, which is Raven issue 3, which I do think this issue improved a bit from issue 2. With this issue, it brings the supporting characters a little bit more into the forefront, where Raven's trying to help her friends, and in the end might lose her soul because of it. But it looks like her friends are starting to learn that they're summing up with her, which is cool. I'm interested to see how they totally react to that in the future issues. Even her aunt seems, you know, to know a little bit more than she's been leading on. So I like that this developed the supporting characters more. I do think the weaker part here is the villain, not really knowing much about the villain, and still not knowing much about the villain in this issue. But yeah, supporting characters really made it, and still very interested to see where the series goes, and I definitely would not mind this being ongoing. So Raven issue 3 for me gets 3.5 stars. I do think it was an improvement from last issue, but not as good as issue 1 yet. Alright, so moving on to number 7, which is a book I was very excited to read, and that is Silk issue 14, where it's a little misleading. I thought Maddie Franklin would be a bigger part in this issue, but it looks like Maddie is going to be a bigger part in the next issue. So J. Jonah has his family back, and Cindy realizes that and finds this out. So she's literally face to face with Maddie by the end of the issue. But this issue does a good job at putting a spotlight a bit on characters we haven't seen, like Hector, really getting to see a good interaction with him and Cindy, which was a lot of fun in this issue, definitely a highlight. And then seeing more of the relationship between J. Jonah and Cindy, seeing why he cares, which is really a great aspect of this book, is Jonah being very different to Cindy than he is to Peter, but at the same time kind of having this, you know, mentor type relationship with both of them. So I really love that aspect. The slower part of this issue, or the disappointing part, is that in this issue, they take a lot of time to tell, alright, Cindy is happy in her life, but for some reason she feels alone. Kind of wish they delved into that a little bit more, or just given us a little bit more, because they do spend a lot of pages on it, and I didn't get as much as I wanted to with that part of the story. So Silk issue 14 for me, though, was, you know, very close to being a solid issue, and I'm still excited to see more, and I like the artwork. I think it's an improvement from what we've been getting. So I give Silk issue 14 3.5 stars. think we are moving on to number 6. So yes, number 6 is Reborn, issue 2. This is a solid book, learning a little bit more about the world here. It's our main character, I believe her name is Bonnie, getting used to the afterlife and learning, pieces of it. Why is her husband not there? Why is her mother not there? Is it because they're evil? We don't know. I love that our cat is part of the evil world, though. I love the reason why he's part of the evil world and why he doesn't like Bonnie. I think that's hilarious. But this issue was solid. I mean, the artwork is great by Capullo, really giving emotion and this epicness, this epic fantasy to life. And it's a good setup issue to what's to come. So Reborn issue 2 gets 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Batman issue 11, which I really enjoyed the Catwoman story here, where we see Catwoman, trying to help herself a lot. In the end, she's helping Batman, but she tells Bane, hey, I'll teach you how to break the bat. Just, I need to get out of here. I need to fend for myself, which is really very much a Catwoman thing to do. And the artwork really made it here. Love the action and, the facial expressions, especially with Catwoman. Let me see if I find a really good page of that. When she takes off her mask, I think that's a really awesome page where we see her facial expressions there. So really good action, and it fits this kind of espionage issue where it's them hunting to find Bane and hunting to find Psycho Pirate. I will say a negative, though, is that the story doesn't progress too much. It's still very slow burn, but I like this issue more than last. So Batman issue 11 gets 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Trinity, issue 3, where I feel like this issue, yes, it kind of does the same thing that we've seen before, Batman's origins, but this time it's going into Batman's head, and he could have easily made his parents alive, but he doesn't. But he knows that it's a different place because of how Gotham looks different, and what makes this issue a bit different from the other Batman retellings of this part of his life is that Superman and Wonder Woman is on his side to kind of hold his hand throughout this journey. So I definitely enjoyed that aspect. I will say the artwork has changed a little bit for this arc, but I think it fit the tone for a Batman story more than the watercolors we would have gotten with Matapool, but still the wonderful paneling that Matapool usually provides is in this issue. And Matapool's dialogue was really well done here, which is why it made my top 5. And then we get a little interesting story with Lois and John. It's like 2 pages, but we get a little bit more from the present too. But I'm glad that they focus more on another character besides Superman, because we did get 2 heavy Superman issues previously, and next we're gonna, get some Wonder Woman, which I'm excited about that. So Trinity issue 3 gets 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, a book I was surprised by, and that is Slam, issue 1, which is from Boom Studios, and it's about roller derby. It's about a roller derby. These 2 women who had definitely different types of lives before roller derby. One person just being too sheltered, and the other character just had a broken heart, and they found the roller derby and each other to be best friends. So in the end, they're doing well as rookies, but they find out that they are drafted for different teams. So really what made the issue for me, Veronica Fish's artwork, which was great, but that ending is like, oh, well, we're friends, but it's complicated because of roller derby. So it was a fun issue, and I thought it was a good setup to a potentially interesting series from Boom. So I gave that 4 stars, and that was number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Archie, issue 14. A really well done book of Archie, where we see Archie trying to be like Jughead and just not care about life, but then realizes that's not the character he is, or he doesn't realize it, at least Jughead realizes it. But it's a wonderful opening where Archie just kind of tries to make Jughead Archie in a lot of ways. It was like, oh, why don't you have a phone? Why don't you do this? And it's like, because that's not me. And he's like, you're right, let me be you. So it was a fun issue of him trying to cope with everything going on with Veronica. But then we have a really cool story with Veronica, her trying to get back from Cheryl. And it's very much in a Veronica way, but what I like about this issue is that Veronica's likable. You know, I think that's always been a problem with me in the modern Archie books, and I guess in general with Veronica, is that she's hard to like. But in this issue, she's doing it for the right reasons, but she's still very much Veronica and wanting to spite Cheryl. So it was a really interesting issue for both Archie and Veronica separately. So I liked it, and I gave it 4 stars, and that was number 2. Moving on to number 1, what was my pick of the week this week? And that was Invincible, issue 131. This book, you know, I was talking about Green Arrow, which was a little lower than Invincible this week, and it was just an action issue where you didn't really get to see a lot of characters or character moments. Well, you got to see characters, you just didn't see them actually have story. Here, you get to see the interactions of the characters, a lot of great character moments as the actions going through, which I really liked about this issue. It's Eve battling her own battles here. We also get to see the story with her leg, how she kind of feels about that, and Tara seeing her mom's leg ripped off, which is crazy. And then she says, "Oh, are you a robot?" It's like, "No, don't worry, honey, it's just my leg." So I thought that was a great scene, a very powerful scene. But then it's Mark taking Tara, trying to save them all, but Tara can't breathe because he's going so fast. So even though he's trying to save his daughter, he's hurting her, and he's like, "Oh, we have to do this. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And you really see the emotion come throughout this issue. Then you have a cliffhanger of Tara falling. So what's going to happen? Is Mark going to save her? I think Tara's going to learn how to fly and finally inherit her father's abilities. We'll have to see. But I really enjoyed this issue. Like I said, it's an action-packed issue, but has a lot of great character moments throughout. So it's a great way to return Invincible, as we had that little hiatus before. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. That is my pick of the week. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. This was Comic Uno, episode 170. Of course, I'll have another episode for Comic Uno episode next week. And let me know in the comments below, what was your worst pick of the week? What was your best pick of the week? And everything in between. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.